This conference will now be recorded.
It was a little delayed. So, welcome. I hope everybody's having a good week. So far, it hasn't been too awful bad. A little warm here, a little humid. It's been a little rainy for you, right, Chris?
Yeah, warm. It wasn't humid up until yesterday when we had a deluge. It's been uncharacteristically dry. So, but now it starts.
Yes, hurricane season is amongst us, and y'all just need to hold on for the ride.
Raining cats and dogs all day yesterday, all day today so far. And they had tornado warnings over in Waco. So, yeah, Texas is about to float away.
I'm going to keep my comments to myself because I'm trying to be a better person.
Write it down so we can remind you when the recording's off.
Yeah, thanks. I see same folks as normal generally. Uh, Welcome. We're going to the topic at hand today. I thought I'd change it up a little bit from, the support side or the laser talk specifically to a little workflow and how we can improve in our small shops by discussing lean and lean waste specifically. So we shall flip over to the slideshow and we'll go from there. Okay, so lean waste. What is lean? Lean's an organizational approach to managing by focusing on efficiency, waste reduction, and continuous improvement. You'll hear lean referred to as Six Sigma lean or Lean Six Sigma, I should say. The whole notion, the whole program and system was developed by Toyota. It's fantastic when you actually start to dig into this and look at the aspects of it. It actually is a fantastic program. It's a pain to completely institute, but once you get it fully instituted in a larger organization, it does very well. So it's built on 5 principles. First, we identify the value and the value of whatever it may be. We map the value stream. We create a flow and establish a pull system, continuous improvements. But today, specifically, we're going to concentrate on the waste removal. Toyota says that there's 7. I've seen doing the research that some people have incorporated an 8th one, so we're going to discuss that one as well. So, how do we identify waste? We have the 7 or 8 listed right here. So first type of waste is defects. Waste from products or failure to meet the customer expectations. I know we've all had that. Somewhere along the line, we screwed something up or the customer wasn't happy with it. So that defect is considered a waste. Overproduction, making more product than the customer demands. Waiting, time spent waiting on the next process. And we'll dig a little bit more into each one of these here in a couple of minutes. So transportation is another one. Covers time, resources, cost of unnecessary moving of product and material. Inventory, excess of products and material that are not processed would be considered a waste of inventory. Motion, time and energy related to unnecessary movements. We're all guilty for this one. That's how we, get 10,000 steps a day in a small little shop. Extra processing is related to more work or higher quality than would be required. That one kind of gives me a little twinge just by the wording on it. And the 8th one that's not part of Toyota, but some people have incorporated an 8th one is unused talent, underutilizing people's knowledge, skills, and ability. So let's move into defects. Hey, if y'all got any questions on this or have any comments, raise a hand, pipe up, scream at me, just shut up. It's all good. So when we talk about defects, welcome. We're just getting into the very beginning of lean and waste reduction. So when we talk about defects, we're talking about products that's not fit for use. One way or another, we've had them, we've produced them and looked at it and went, I don't like this, or the customer wasn't happy with them. Now, this then turns and results in reworking or scrapping the project. Waste is an additional cost in material and time. Whether we think about it, it's one piece of plywood, it's one tumbler, it's I know Lois and I talk all the time, we got to sacrifice something for testing. So, when you look at that additional cost, but what some people don't take into account is the labor, the time that went into making it, whether it was just sanding it or gluing it together, the glue, the screws, nuts, bolts, the whole 9 yards. And I'm guilty just as probably most. I don't pull screws back out. If I built something, I throw it, and then a day or two later, when it's time to burn it, I just burn it and scrap it. Instead, so that waste of screws falls into that part of the defect. So how do we fix it? We identify the frequent defects and then we focus on it. If you know that you're you don't pay attention to whether it's focusing your laser or using the right sandpaper or any of that stuff. So we figure out what the frequent defect is, and then we focus on it to try to fix it. Welcome, Chris. Nice to see you again. Do not pass along defective material. It's just bad business, if you ask me. To pass your customer something that you wouldn't want to put in your own residence or your own display. And then sometimes you might have to redesign it. How many, think about your, and I'll ask Chris, since he's here, Myers, when you're prototyping something, how much waste from defects are involved? A fair
A lot. A lot.
But once you've got that process down, your waste for defects should be null unless you have an issue printing, a bill plate doesn't stick or something goes haywire with the laser.
Yep. Yeah, so that time, that's almost like your setup time. Even like when you're doing a rotary tumbler job, you might need to waste one or two of them to dial in your settings and get the graphic right. Even if you do the tape trick or whatever, you might burn through a couple of them.
Exactly. And that also falls into time as part of the waste. So we go to overproduction. I know I'm guilty as can be for this. There is no doubt about it. Processing too much product or material needed, trying to avoid the just in case. Let's. But to me, this is a double-edged sword because you start looking at your waste, and if we're cutting, let's say, the shape of Kentucky out of a large board, there's a small area because of the shape that we can cut something else out of. So we're reducing the actual waste of the material, but we're overproducing, which leads to stacks on the shelves behind me that this nice forest of a background is hiding. Or I mean, like I said, I am guilty of this one as can be. It's easier for me to make 3 than it is to make 1, or it takes the same amount of time to make 3 of a product as it does 1. So, and here we go. It leads to a higher storage cost, hiding defects, less smooth workflow, and higher cost in production. However, on the other hand, when you look at overproducing, and I'm not sure how, Chris, you do with your, let's say, 3D printers. Um, for us, when we're doing small projects, filling a build plate is, yes, overproducing because we only need one of them, but I can get the cost down because of the time and everything else. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, I was actually printing some tall cylinders uh, this week for a new thing, and printing one was like 3 hours, two was 4 hours, and like three was 5 hours. If I printed them all together. Now, if I did where sometimes you want to print one at a time because tall objects fall over, it went back up to like 9 or 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something in the slicer setting, I believe, for cooling for that PLA to let it cool down in between layers or something where it slows down. But same thing on your laser. You know, we talk about engraving in the X direction. If you can stack 5 or 6 of them in a row, you've reduced, accelerations and decelerations versus just doing one at a time. Back in the day, Lightburn would calculate a little bit for the fill individual. People, I'm going to do fill individual. It's going to take, a third of the time because Lightburn preview didn't calculate fin space. Then they'd hit the start button like, well, it's 50 minutes later and we're still burning every little letter one at a time. So.
Exactly. So how do we fix overproduction? We reduce setup times, assembly times, and we do things in small batches. Um, is in theory how you reduce the overproduction, but in reality, it's a mind change. And sometimes this one is amazingly hard in our situations to prevent.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the Toyota thing, kind of like the
Yep.
just-in-time delivery type,
Yes.
where they basically try to sync product in, manufacture with it, and then get that product out the door. Never let it sit in a warehouse as raw, unfinished goods.
Exactly. And yes, this is based on Toyota's Lean Six Sigma and their ways of production. Um, this one I love. Waiting. It includes waiting on materials or equipment. Idle equipment. It's caused by an unevenness in production and results in excessive inventory and sometimes overproduction. We specifically, and I'll just throw us under the bus constantly on this slideshow because we've learned so much trying to tweak this in our personal lives. But I have to do certain things before she can do certain things. So the laser's set idle, or she's twiddling her thumbs because we've already done, or she's already done the manual work of getting the files ready to go. It's waiting on me. So it's a day of waiting on me that the machines aren't doing anything. I never stop moving because as soon as she's doing something, I'm moving to the next process. But again, waiting, sometimes you can fix it, sometimes you can't. Design processes to ensure steady workflow, standardized work instructions, and develop flexible, multi-skilled worker. That's pretty much if you've got a large scale company. If you're one or two people trying to do it, it gets a little bit more challenging, I should say. So in a small shop, project management is the key to reducing wasted time on waiting, laying out how you're going to do things. And I know I find myself, and I don't know about the rest of y'all, find myself going, okay, I can take 5 minutes and do this, or I can do, this other thing. And then while the glue is drying, I can go back through this process. So I'm going to go ahead and get the glue up done. So the glue's drying while I'm doing something else. And I know that, in today's, I don't want to say in today's culture, project management really isn't taught or something that's thought about a lot, at least from what I can see. Transportation includes movement of people, tools, inventory, equipment, and products. least unnecessary work, greater wear and tear, and exhaustion. So, transportation for a small shop is, whether it's product going in, product coming out, or, your deliveries. I take transportation into your supply runs. If I don't know what the local big box store is about 20 minutes away. So by the time I'm said and done, it's an hour and a half, 2 hour trip. So we try to limit that to once a week, once every couple of weeks, or I make a big list and go to town. Any of y'all function the same way, or y'all just run back and forth 15 times a day?
Well, I was going to say, who offers not necessarily porch pickup, but where you meet the customer somewhere to pick up something? That's the most frustrating thing ever.
Yes, the Army taught me timeliness. If you're not 10 minutes early, you're late.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you're just sitting there waiting on somebody, killing time, and they either don't show up, they have a last minute excuse, but that time is precious, right?
yes.
But sometimes you
Time
do
is money.
Yeah.
So how do we fix it? We create a flow between the processes, and not overproducing. Small shops, make your supply runs on set days is possibly a good way to reduce your transportation waste, and all the associated things that go with that. Designate pickup and delivery times and dates. We're starting to get to that point where, other than, hey, we're open, 10 to 4, Monday through Friday, stop on by. It's okay. You have this window. I'll give you 3 windows to pick from. And that's your specific pickup time. That way we're not overlapping of people. So to inventory. Having more inventory than is necessary can lead to defects and damaged material, greater lead times in production, inefficient allocations of capital, and lost or misplaced products. I know that, for us specifically, holding a lot of inventory is not the wisest thing. For everybody's seen our shop. It's a tiny little thing, and when we've got attic space that's taken up by cases and cases of tumblers, or stacks of lumber, or stuff like that, things get lost, things get damaged. That is for sure. Caused by overpurchasing, overproducing, or prevents defect detections. So wood specifically, as wood sits, it's going to expand and contract as moisture leaves and enters, which can cause warping and twisting. We've all seen it with plywood. If the sun hits it a little too much, it'll discolor or start to warp. Over purchasing, I would have never thought, in the beginning of all of this, that over purchasing was a bad thing until you run out of storage space for it. And when you got $1,000 worth of supplies sitting in the rain that shouldn't get wet, it kind of sucks. Again, the overproducing, if you're overproducing, you got to find a place to store it. And then you can have damage because of the storage. So how do we fix? We purchase our raw materials when necessary, and in quantities that's needed. I just, because I didn't think Myers was going to be here and in such a chipper mood. How much materials, let's just say for you, for the 3D printers, do you have on hand, or do you buy when needed?
Yes and no. So some of the common materials that I can get, because Amazon's been fantastic after dumping the post office and no longer doing the UPS deliveries that they did last year. So probably 30 kilograms sitting around me. 5, probably more. Well, no, I got more than that. Heck, there's 25 kilograms just in that one printer. Those are my big spools. And then the regular colors that I can get in a day, I just order those. But some of the
Okay.
more custom colors. But yeah, because Amazon, like I ordered some today, and guess what? They're delivering this evening. So I want to move to less on hand to get rid of that storage because Amazon is able to get it to me fast enough, and I'd rather use their warehouse as my storage than my own.
And yeah, I got Lois in my
Yeah.
ear
I got
with,
6
how many rolls do we have? Probably 150 to 200
Yeah.
spools of filament, of different colors, not to mention wood and all that other. How about you? I'll pick on Gord. He popped in today. So how do you handle your inventory up there? If he's willing to talk to us today.
I absolutely am. Can you hear me okay?
We got you.
Hang on, let me find this camera thing. There you go. I think there you go. Sorry guys, I'm up north and I'm super exhausted because I've been felling trees and bucking firewood for 3 days and I'm kind of tired. But I wanted to catch on because I always get something out of your technical conferences. So here's my gig. Inventory, especially when you're starting out, you do not want to carry too much inventory. Because remember, forget about the business or your accountant's determination of what you're carrying or not. You're small. You're starting out, right? You got a bolt like me, which I absolutely adore. And I am, no matter how many people keep leaving me comments, asking me if I'd sell it, I'm not selling that bolt. I love that bolt. I got the Nova Plus now, which is now allowing me to do bigger stuff. But here's the key. You are going to spend a lot of time trying to find local suppliers of acrylic, plywoods, true flat, MDF. Um, uh, the biggest one for me here in Canada was finding somebody with good quality drinkware, right? Tumblers, travel mugs with good quality powder coat, not the stuff that you're getting in a big crate for $4.95 a cup, because that's not the good stuff. So what do? Honestly, you guys can hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yeah, and sorry, it's been a long day in the forest, but you have to manage your inventory. So what you want to do is find local suppliers of good quality stuff. And so I'll give you a great example. I have, I'm not going to mention names because I don't think that's appropriate. I got a supplier that is literally 10 minutes away from me, but refuses to offer pickup service. I am not paying shipping 10 minutes away from me. But I got another guy 15 minutes away from me here in Toronto that literally, if I place an order before 9 or 10 o'clock, by noon, I get the notice saying my order's ready. And I drive 50 minutes north of me and I pick up my acrylic. It's that quick. So I don't have to stockpile inventory. My cups now that I use, or my tumblers, are from Grosh International. They are about 45 minutes from me. So when I'm ordering bulk and I don't need it right away, I'll order it and I'll pay the shipping. But when I need something, I send them a note and I call them and I go, I need, 30 or 40 of this product. And I'll literally grab a coffee and I'll drive down the highway. Why? Because I need a little time to myself, and it's cool to be listening to podcasts or whatever, or audiobooks or Crime Junkie, which I listen to a lot. Zip down the highway, pick up my order, bring it back, and I get it done. If I don't need it that quick, I'll pay the shipping. So from an inventory perspective, if you watch my channel, you'll notice that my wife and I downsized. My big oversized garage I used to have when the kids were growing up, I've got this little wee space. I don't have the opportunity to, one, leave garbage around because I have no room. I have to clean it constantly to keep it clean and to maximize my space. But two, on an inventory level, I find local suppliers that have good quality stuff. And once I zero in on one, even though there are discounts from this other supplier or there's the odd, constant sale from other wholesalers, I focus because I know that I have created my settings on the Bolt and now I'm working on my Nova Plus. And once I get them zeroed in on that product, I don't care if anybody else has a similar product at a discount. I know that my settings work on those materials,
Mhm.
and I'll pay those materials because, of course, you include those costs in your products to your customers. And
No,
that, yeah, and sorry,
absolutely.
and the bottom line is, especially when you're starting out, you cannot go out and spend thousands of dollars on inventory. You need to be in a position where, like the guy is 50 minutes north of me, I need this acrylic, that acrylic, mirrored acrylic, whatever acrylic. I set the order at 8 o'clock in the morning, and in 2 hours, they're sending me a note saying your order's ready. Come pick it up. I jumped.
No, and you're absolutely correct with that. So you're fortunate, and you've got a distributor down the street, or
Yeah,
within a short amount of travel time that you're able to order, pick up the same day. Um, things of that nature. So for you, maintaining an inventory is not really there because you can get it when you need it, which is exactly what you should be doing. And whatnot. So that is absolutely fantastic.
yeah.
I
And
know for us,
for
I
Angle
buy
TV.
pallets of lumber.
Yes, yeah, I don't. Number one, for anybody new with their laser, you're going to start with Home Depot stuff, but at the end of the day, you need a proper premium wood provider. I use KJP here in Ontario. Of course, I'm in Canada. They have literally, over the last 18 months since I got the Bolt, they have the best craft board, MDF, uh, plywoods. You're going to find that, a lot of people don't realize that when you go to Home Depot, you're buying construction grade plywoods. Well, when you're building crafts and you're building designs, the last thing you want is construction grade plywoods or woods because they don't laser the same. So for me, I have a certain amount of inventory, which you sometimes sees in the videos. I got a lot of stuff in the basement, which of course my wife just loves me piling stuff in the basement. But I've learned over the last 18 to 20 months that you have to figure out your sweet spot. So that's why on my website it always says it's 5 to 7 days to ship because that
Good
gives,
call.
yeah, and you buy good quality stuff, and once you get something, if I not to be too verbose, um, once you find a good supply of a good premium product, whether it's tumblers, drinkware, craft plywood, MDF, plywoods, acrylic, don't keep jumping around on any discount offer you see because you create your settings on your Bolt, or in my case now on the Nova Plus, based on that quality of product. So you stick with them.
Understand completely. But
Makes
hey,
sense?
yeah, absolutely. Let me flip back out of the and keep moving on with the lean and the waste.
Yeah.
And that monetary is definitely something that we got to watch out. So motion, how much
Before
do
we
we move a day? Is
before we,
that
before we get too far, kind of what he was talking about, want to know, Tommy, do you also buy your birthday candles in bulk for the month of June?
yeah, I do.
Did you? How many? How many birthday candles did you have to buy?
More than you can count. Uh,
I got my socks off.
All right. Go
So,
easy. He's
Me,
running the conference call. Don't be
so if
crap.
y'all haven't figured it out, Tommy had a birthday recently.
how did you figure it out? That's my
He
question for
won't.
you.
Yeah, he won't share the details.
No, nope, not at all. Not at all. But I
If
want to
I
know
had
who
to
narked.
guess, it has at least a 5 on it, probably a 6.
Ooh. Damn.
Happy
You
birthday
won't say. We got to assume.
to you.
Yeah.
He's
Nah.
he's gonna kill you guys.
Oh yeah. Y'all are definitely in there, and as well. So we'll get back on topic with motion, because as we get older, we have to
You're
stay
29
straight.
again, right?
Yes, I will pretend that just like my grandmother used to say, I'm 29 and holding.
Exactly.
Um,
You bet.
so motion, this includes all the unnecessary movement, people, equipment, and machinery, lifting, walking, reaching, bending, stretching, and moving, that sort of stuff. When you're, I'll pick on CeeLo there, because where his desk is and all three lasers are stacked right beside him. I'm assuming you can just roll from one to the next, right? Yep, exactly. And I started doing that on this side with the Auroras. Um, but here we go with let's tune to the specific and lasers. We talk to people all the time, and my computer's in this room, but my laser's in the garage, and I gotta send it and then walk out the door and go to my laser and run the file. So looking at your how much movement are you doing a day? If you're tracking your steps, then fantastic. But if you're trying to reduce that motion, then you want to look at your workflow and how your shops are set up, and how do we fix it. Tasks that require excessive movements should be redesigned. If there's health and safety levels in there, place equipment near production locations, organize your workspace, putting materials in or at and in the locations to reduce stretching or straining. I can look at and I know, Sam, I'll pick on you while you're there. You've got, or you're working on getting a building built, or you've built it. You just gotta, so looking at your motion and how much motion that you want to reduce is how you start to lay it out, and set. As CeeLo's laughing at me here. Did you give that thought when you built your building,
What? What?
where everything would go and how much movement
I
you
don't.
needed to make?
I don't think I considered movement. It was a progressively changing environment for sure. Um, but I had the lift plotted out. This was going to be the area for the lasers, but it has been revisited several times and reorganized.
I reorganize mine frequently, and it sucks.
And the one thing about me not knowing what I'm doing and building my building is I have no idea what's going on. So as far as a workflow is concerned, oh no, I get a million steps in and I've only cut 2 pieces of wood, so I'm good.
Okay. So Sam, how that you can start looking at things to reduce that waste of motion. Um, so extra
Yeah, definitely.
processing.
I try. It's a thought, but I haven't come up with a plan of what to wear. And I know that you need big cutoff saws, miter saws first to make littler pieces, and then bring it over to the laser, and then the sander laser. Yeah, I got it. But again, I don't know what I'm doing, so it's all good. I think of it as a positive for the steps.
Yeah, exactly. You can look at it that way, and I'm getting old. I don't want to walk that much. I'm fat and lazy. So extra processing, adding more work, extra components, or having more steps in the product than is required. I have a buddy of mine that used to tell me if you did it right the first time, then you don't have to worry about trying to fix your mistake. And that's goes back into that extra processing. Over engineering a solution. And of course, our resident engineer disappeared, so that I can't make fun of him for that one. Adjusting components after, oh, he's back now. Now I can't make fun of him. After installation, using components over the capacities that are required. Do you ever find yourself, Mr. Myers, doing that? Over engineering or using components that are overqualified for the part?
Yes. Sometimes there's a very simple solution, and I end up making it too complex. Yes.
As long as you can come to grips with that and admit it, that's
Yeah.
all that really matters. Generating extra or more detailed reports, unnecessary steps. If you're in an office environment, this is kind of one of those extra processings. I've been asked all the time, hey, how do you, and I talked to a buddy of mine that runs a coffee shop, and he's like, got everything broke down with his how much labor he spent that day and how much came in and all this other stuff. And I'm like, real quick, it's money going in, money coming out. So I don't think about a lot of that stuff to try to save myself. But we understand the work requirements. That's how you prevent the over processing. Is understand the work requirements from the customer standpoint. So for us, we get detailed information. I ask 100 questions so that I can make sure that I get it what they want to do in the least amount of trouble and time. Product to the level and quality that the customer desires. That's a double-edged sword right there, if you ask me. Because sometimes the customers they expect perfection, or they expect something that should come out of, say, Tiffany's, but they don't want to pay for it.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes you can only get what the material will give you. Like, let's talk about glass, engraving on glass. Some people love CO2 on glass, right? Because they don't know any better comparing to other methods. But somebody that's been doing sandblasting comes to you and they're like, that doesn't look that great. Now, can you do decent engravings with CO2 on glass? Yes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But other people will compare it to other things.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but I'll chime in there because I've done both. I came from sandblasting, and sandblasting was fun, and sandblasting was cool, but sandblasting was a heck of an involved process.
Correct.
Got to make the sticker, weed the sticker, put the sticker on the glass, sandblast it, unweed the sticker off the glass, blah, 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 blah. On the laser, I design it, I throw it on the laser, 400 speed, 10 power. See you later, have a good night. It's over, it's done, I walk away. And I love it. I love it. And I'll challenge anybody on it. It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
there's also the chemical version too. But if you put
Absolutely
three
challenge
side by
me.
side,
Challenge me on that glass. Absolutely. The beauty of Thunder Laser, and again, I'm not an ambassador. I'm not selling the product, but if you're doing glass, you need a UV. If you're doing it on your CO2, it does a decent job, but that's the beauty of the product set is if you're focusing on glass, you're not doing a CO2 on glass. You're doing UV on glass. And yeah, you might think it's okay. It's not okay. You
Go
need
ahead, CeeLo.
What?
did I get outside of my frame here?
No, I mean,
Yeah, no disrespect to that gentleman that was just talking, but I have spent hours and hours with different people and myself, and you get a pretty decent quality on certain types of glass. But if you're doing glass, you need a UV, and Thunder Laser has a UV. I'm just telling you, it's my own experience with
it's
a
a night,
number of
it's a night and
people.
day difference. It is. It's the closest thing you're going to get to sandblasting without having the sandblast. Now the UV is in my opinion just a little slow, but the result is phenomenal.
Yeah, but the key is quality to your customer. It's not about the time it takes.
well,
I mean,
it is.
it's not
There's
trying
got
to.
to be.
Says I want these glasses for my wedding, which I've had, and it might take longer on a different type of laser. The key is, do you have the right laser? And you got a Thunder Laser CO2, you got a fiber, you got a UV. And if you're doing glass and you're doing champagne glasses for a wedding, you need a UV because you're going to get the best quality out of that UV. 100% you will. You can argue with me if you want. It's totally cool. But
But this is what
that's
is
the
the customer willing to pay for as well. Your wedding customer probably is willing to pay for it, but if somebody wants some shot glasses or something to give away as a company gift, they may not want to pay that premium.
Yeah, and there's a huge after processing, post processing with glass on the CO2. You know, Sam, I've done glass on CO2 forever, and if you do it light power, it doesn't break apart like if you did it with more power. But eventually it does. Couple cycles through the dishwasher, something like that, it starts to fracture, or it starts to lift off of the surface, and then it starts to peel. Like you can get away with it in the beginning, but eventually it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
So
it
at
has
the
to
end
be
of the
clean.
day,
Some
yeah,
way, shape, or form, it needs to be cleaned off so the customer isn't getting those shards in their fingers. Um, it comes out good. I think actually this glass was done on a CO2, and it looks good. But I know I took a wheel to it. Um, yeah, I
but
mean it can
anyway,
look good.
it's if you're doing a side hustle, excuse me, I'm not a big fan of the side hustle comment because in my that always has a negative thing. But you have a side business, or you have a full business, and you want to do glass, look into Thunder Lasers UVs. I know you can do it on the CO2s. I know you can do it, but the UV is much better. And at the end of the day, when somebody says, I want all these champagne flutes engraved with our name, you want to do it on UV. You do, hands down. And the beauty is, what I've learned over the last almost 2 years is uh, you got Thunder Laser CO2, RF CO2, whatever. You've got fiber, you've got UV. And if your focus is in one area or another, then you buy that product, that laser.
We're going
And
to get to that one here in a second. Thank you
all
for
right.
that's a good, great segue into what's coming here in a
Well,
moment.
kind of exhausted there, Angry C. So I'm just throwing out my opinions, whether you
Nope,
like
nope.
them
I got you. We're going to hit that topic here in a minute. But unused talent, um, this is the 8. We've already covered the 7 according to Toyota. This is that extra one that people have thrown in. It's not one of the original 7. It's a waste of human potential. If you've got multiple people working for you, or this is kind of where it really applies. Is we want to make sure you got people that are doing the work, that can identify. You got your line workers; they're the ones that can identify the problems and help develop solutions instead of they're just a line worker. Kind of utilize them. It includes insufficient training, poor incentives, not asking employee feedback, placing employees in position below their skill or qualification levels. Yes, we all have job descriptions and things of that nature, but here it goes: the right tool for the right job. Um, and whether it's unused talent or the machinery, that's kind of the takeaway for this one is, let's use the right tool for the right job. They all, it all works, but which one works the best? How do we identify and eliminate waste? Is we recognize that waste exists. That's kind of like the first thing. We have to recognize that there's waste. Effective process to identify it. Sometimes it's just the light bulb moment. Whether it's you're doing something and you go, wow, I am walking an awful lot here. Why? Or, why are we doing it this way? Sometimes, just because we've done it this way for 10 years doesn't mean it's the right way. There may be a better way. I learned that one a lot in the Army. Why are we doing it this way? Because we've always done it this way. Sometimes we have to stop and think about it. We determine how you will eliminate waste or how we can eliminate that waste. Sometimes it may take the time and energy or reorganization, relearning a process. Sometimes the way to fix it is a little painful, but in the long run, it works out. We slow down, we do the job correct one time, and again, we're going back to that right tool, right job. So specifically for small shops, I stopped and kind of wrote some notes here on this one as I was thinking about us and how we work with stuff, and it may or may not apply to everybody. So we start with one at a time. You can't do all 7 at the same time. That's just Tommy's philosophy on that. So which one is the most effective for you to start with, and then you go from there. Think about the processes while you're doing them. I concentrate a lot as I'm, whether it's sanding or doing whatever, my thoughts of I got to get these handles. Well, what else do I need to go get? Because I'm not making 30 trips back and forth to town. I don't like people that much. We look at our workflow. We look at our shop layout. For instance, Lois's computer is dead in the middle of 2 lasers, and she sits high enough that she can look over and see both of them. She can do all the corrections and moves from light burn while she's watching the red dot. What's done with the physical waste of the product, the scraps or the cutoffs. Can we do something else with it? And I met a guy years ago that he taught Lean and Six Sigma for the Army, so he traveled all over teaching these courses, and he was impressed. Because I take a large board and then we start making a piece of furniture, and then I have a smaller board, so we make something out of that smaller board, and then I have more scraps, and we process those scraps a little bit more, and she can make stuff like earrings. So reducing your waste somewhere along the line, physical waste, instead of just burning it or throwing it away. And now I start to sound like a tree hugger, but that's okay, because somewhere along the line we have to start realizing how much waste that we're getting rid of that can possibly be reused. Some of it can't. And then how much this is it? How much space is it taking up? I have piles and piles of scrap. Okay, I'm going to get to this. I'm going to get to this. And a month later, I'm like, nope, I'm not going to get to this. So it goes away. So there can be some, drawbacks to it. How do you manage your inventory? For the ready items, materials, try to order as much stuff as you can that you'll need. Sometimes you can't. I need 100 tumblers, but the minimum order is 200. So do you not order it, or do you order it and try to figure out where to store it and hope you can sell it? And what do you do in your downtime? For me, what do I do when I'm waiting on glue to dry? Or you're waiting on a printer, you're waiting on that laser. What can you be doing to help reduce that waste of time? Redesigning or designing the next. CeeLo, when you're running your metal tags, do you have them all stacked up so it's just quick, or do you have to travel back and forth to get them? Where do you store them and stuff like that for you?
They are in. I try to do stacks of 50 because they are heavy. So I'll put usually groups of 10 on the laser and sort them out. Get 50, and I'll be cleaning them off as I go, stacking them up in blue bins. I mean, the whole process has a process.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be quick and efficient, and I did a couple of different ways in the very beginning, and I finally figured out what works and how I could process them quickly and efficiently. Like on the floor, I have all the bulk, and it moves up a level, gets cleaned off, gets moved over to the laser, and then gets cleaned off and gets put in a bin. So yeah, there's a process to everything. And it takes a couple of iterations to get it right, but you'll see the flow.
Is there
And then
anything
you
on
start.
there?
What's that, Chris?
Is there anything on there about forklift motion waste or delay?
So that would fall into the transportation and moving of equipment. I believe that's where that falls into, and we will continue on. But as we go through these slides, and I'm hoping most people have heard about this or read a little bit about this. Did you consider any of this, or is it just kind of second nature? Oh, this sucks. I've had to bend over 50 times to pick this up. I got to figure out a way to do this without having that motion of stooping or bending or stretching. As he looks at me and shakes his head, yes. So,
For me,
yeah, for you.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I try to figure out the quickest way and easiest way to do things all the time. I worked for Toyota.
Following these processes without knowing that you're following these
Yeah, I mean, I
processes.
guess so. I mean, I worked for Toyota for several years, so maybe it's just ingrained. But
It could be.
even with my landscape company, my routing for the drivers are mostly right turns. It's safer, it's quicker. It's what's the efficient flow to do these things, and I kind of do that all the time.
Yeah, it makes no sense to send one crew on the other side of town when there's probably 10 closer.
Right.
So and then we look at how often are we making deliveries or supply runs. I try to get to town at least once a week. I don't like to leave the house. Most people know that. I'm not a people person. So we limit our exposure, and we limit our trips to town to pick up supplies, or I just hit the Amazon order and I wait for it to get here.
And that's one thing that I do too, now that I'm not in full production mode and running a side hustle or an actual business. If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I need 20 tumblers," I pick what you want on Amazon and drop ship it.
Fair enough.
Well, that was also what Laser Note was talking about earlier. I meant to chime in was the 5 to 7 days processing. I've got some lead times on my stuff too, but sometimes it feels like you might lose an order because of the Amazon mentality of I want it today,
Right.
I want it tomorrow. It's like 5 to 7 days is like an eternity to people now. But the thing is, like you set that stuff up, and it's a one-time guess of okay, how long does it really take me to do this? With I'm running normal load, but if you get like a crazy set of orders, your true processing time could expand. But you have to go back to the website and update every one of those, and show what your load level is. But
Well, and cost too. Like with specifically tumblers, you have to buy them a certain amount, right? Either 24 or 12 or whatever it is that you have to buy. The customer needs
fitting them in a grid case.
Right. If the customer needs 6, I'm not going to JDS unless I feel it's necessary to have 6 more on hand. Right. There's no point in me buying that. That's when go to Amazon, find what you like. I don't care. I've tested enough material to know that I can probably nail it either the first try or hopefully the second. But yeah, I mean,
same thing with hats.
do it.
With those hats, having to order like a dozen per style.
Yeah, that's true. The hats are a pain in the butt. I don't do a lot of them, but yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of hats sitting here if somebody comes and needs them. But yeah, I had to buy 12 at a time depending on the style.
Yeah.
And that's what gets hard when you look at your inventory and all that extra that's sitting there, and the money that you've shelled out for them.
Right.
It all starts to add up. So as small businesses, like y'all said, we need to concentrate on it a little bit more. We probably won't, but it's a noble thought. I'm a realist. I can sit here and teach this class and think about all this stuff and go, yep. The next time, I told a customer the other day, hey, if I'm going to order a special color, I have to order 200. That means you're buying at least 100.
In addition to all that, there's also your shipping boxes. If you're shipping a lot of stuff, having those on hand, your Uline boxes. Yep. I try to reuse as much as I can from Amazon and whatever we get delivered, but they do take up waste, and kind of junky looking, but I all the air bubbles, paper
You
stuff, all that stuff, I like to keep it and reuse it.
Uline really thinks that their cardboard boxes are like the shit.
Yeah, but I get them in a day.
Have to spend $500 to get free shipping.
So we just did that. We purchased 3 cases of bubble bags, which literally go from floor to ceiling here in my shop. It's back there, but I don't know how to turn off the trees for the fake background. And boxes. We're like, we talked to one of our wholesale clients who uses us for shipping. Instead of going to the UPS store or whatever, she comes here because she can ship things cheaper through us. And we charge her a little fee, and then we charge her for the packing supplies. If she doesn't bring it already packed, we make sure that we have the supplies and stuff for her as well. So when we saw that we had to order $500 worth of stuff to get the free shipping, we called her and we said, hey, what things are you going to continue to be shipping with us, so that we can make sure that we get the right size of everything, to make this easier for everybody, instead of us trying to scrounge, because she's brought us stuff with no supplies at all. And then we have to just try and figure it out with this random thing that she brings us, because it's not always a barrel lid or a whatever known shape and size. So
That makes
now we have to store all of that though, until it gets used.
no. You're right. You're bang on, Lois. Absolutely. So I know this is a Canadian perspective. I have 2 discount carton manufacturers within about 30 minutes of me. And so when I started out 8 years ago on my other channel, I'm driving 25, 30 minutes to this place to get discount boxes. And what they are, of course, as you know, they're leftovers. So they have a big customer that create, I don't know, a couple thousand boxes, and there's some, ones that were not great, and they sell them at a discount. And you get them at a discount. The problem is, every time you go in and you find that first one that's like perfectly fit your laser design, you go back in the next time and they don't have any left.
Yep.
And you eventually, and I'm not suggesting this is the right way or the wrong way, but I finally gave up on it after 8 years, because you get the right size box sometimes, and then you get some they don't have them left because they're what do you call them, defective, right?
Yep.
So I finally, about a year and a half ago, said, screw it, I'm going to Uline. I'll buy the right size box, because remember, your customer's paying the shipping.
Yes.
So if I go to these carton manufacturers, and I won't say any names because I don't think that's appropriate, you get, if you're lucky, the right size box at a ridiculously low rate. But they're only available because they ran a couple thousand boxes for a customer, and these were the knockoffs. And then you go in the next time, and they're like, no, we don't have them anymore. So you eventually realize you got to go to Uline or whatever your local or carton box is, because at the end of the day, you can't keep changing your website, going into those back. In all fairness, which is what I do, you go into your website, you go back into the packaging back end, and you change the box again, and you change the box again, and you change the box again.
And there's that time. You're now wasting all of that time that you could be spent making things and selling things.
Exactly. And more importantly, you can't keep changing it every time you go to that discount guy that's got the knockoffs or
when his prices are different every single time you go.
Exactly. So
Yep.
you eventually, and for me personally, I about a year to 14, 16 months ago, I just finally said enough. I get my product, whether it's a sign or it's a tumbler or it's whatever. I buy my boxes from Uline. It shows up. They're perfectly the right dimensions because you're trying to minimize your shipping cost to the customer.
Yep.
Right. And the interesting thing for you folks in the U.S., because apparently I'm the only Canadian guy here. Am I
Our shipping's cheaper.
Yeah. So crazy shit.